scary.
How's everybody doing this morning? Thumbs up. Nice. So did the promised snow arrive?
Not here in Medicine Hat, no.
No.
I'm looking at Terry Shillington and wondering if
Nancy
that's
says
Terry
a little bit.
with his beard. Is that you, Terry? Can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, it is Terry.
There's a lot of COVID beards.
Yeah.
Our son woke me up at 6 to tie his bathrobe.
I was reading that. That's funny. There you go. And on Mother's Day weekend too, right? That just demonstrates you that a mom's work is never done. So there you go.
Terry's beard is a pandemic beard.
Yeah. My kids have reached the age of 11, so it's a sweet spot. You know.
Anne, I agree, Anne. Anne would like to have a prayer offered that John Pentland shave his COVID beard.
Yeah. Well, I did a full, like usually I have the goatee, and last year I did a full beard, and we had the congregation, we did a bit of a fundraiser with my beard. We had folks donate to keep it or donate to get rid of it. So Easter Sunday, I was shaved right down to the bone because the lose it side won. I think my spouse though was working on the congregation to try to get as much money as possible for the lose it side because she did not like the full bushy beard.
I had somebody message me and say, "Who's speaking?" when John was talking yesterday.
Oh, and I see Kathy's prodding me. I'll leave you to talk to the folks. I'm going to send a message to Kathy before she disowns me, or, you know, well, she's
still smiling. That's a good thing.
Oh, good.
While we're talking, shout out to Kathy Yamashita, who's doing the minutes for this meeting. She's fabulous, and we so appreciate that. It's kind of a lot for staff to do minutes and also all the organization and tech that's required around the meeting. So it's really helpful to have someone else doing minutes, and Kathy stepped in this year and last year. So thanks so much, Kathy. So should we play with our mentee while we're waiting for people to arrive? So folks, get the code for the mentee. It's at the top of the screen. It's also in the chat. How are we feeling this morning? Congratulations, Vicki. It's going to be a grandma.
Yes. Very exciting news.
Cool. And the next one. Are you wearing pajamas right now?
And on heart, Bible, are you wearing? No, but I'm not wearing my day clothes either. Still in my gym clothes. But yes, Stan, it is a soft clothes kind of day. Agree.
Quiz time. Okay, this one you gotta be fast.
Right.
This doesn't show the answers till the timer's up, so you can't get clues. It was in Oshawa.
Oh, this is a bit of a trick question. Oh, I missed the elected part. Mm.
Oh, this is missing the question.
What is this one? This is not so helpful. Pick something though, people. Come on, let's pick something. Is there even a right answer? Ooh, look at y'all go. Good one. Oh, y'all are wrong. Everybody's wrong on that one. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
It just it's a blank slide that got left.
Yeah,
in there.
apparently.
Okay, I want to know who Simba is, because like 2 days in a row. Okay, identify yourself, Simba. We want to know who the Taylor. So Taylor is a United Church geek. We'll have to remember that for future reference. Great job.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're just at nearing the top of the hour. And so we would like to begin right at 9 a.m. With worship. And so at this time, I invite you to settle back and remember that we do have some built-in breaks today, some short breaks built in today, but if you need to get up and move around, do so. If you need to walk away from your screen, do what you need to do so that you can be present. The business part of our meeting is this afternoon, where we will be voting on various proposals. And so just so you know the timing, to be sure to, if you're a voting member, to participate in that. We have, our meeting goes right until nearly 5 p.m. today. We have, in light of knowing that we need more discussion time for some of our business work, we're asking for folks to enter into your coffee chat time at 1 p.m. as opposed to 1:15. So we'll get, I'll remind folks just before lunch, but our return time, if you're going to go into a chat room, will be 1 p.m. and we'll begin gathering formally again at 1:30 as opposed to 2 o'clock. So we have a half an hour for chat rooms. All right. If you have a theme for a chat room that you want, just put it into the chat or email or text one of us, and Alan will label the chat room. I've already asked him to put together a duck room for 1 p.m. So if you have a specific group that you're inviting to join you for conversation, then just let us know. And so as we begin, I'd like to read the acknowledgement of the land that we use for the region. And we are inviting you to make right into the comment section, what does saying this and trying to embody this land acknowledgement, what does that mean for you? And so the Chinook Winds region is located on Treaty 4, Treaty 6, and Treaty 7 territories, and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3, which is the home of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai, and the Tsuut'ina Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda First Nation. Our region is also located on the traditional meeting grounds and traveling route of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, and Nakota Sioux peoples. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Innu whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries, and affirm our commitment to the principles and actions of reconciliation. And now let us move into a time of worship.
When you live in a northern climate, you crave the sunlight. Long winters leave us anxious and restless, and we can't wait to soak up the rays and thaw ourselves out. But sometimes the sun is too hot, the rain is withheld, everything dries out, and life slowly fades. Our faith is sometimes like that too. We planted seeds with great hope, waiting for the spring, but they aren't nourished the way they should be. Sometimes our hopes are dashed. Sometimes they need better tending. Sometimes they never germinate. But maybe we just planted the wrong seeds. Maybe there are different seeds that can withstand the sun if we just release our expectations that everything is always done the same way. We plant our seeds with great expectations, but life is lived in this great state of unknowing, of always checking the forecast, of trusting that the universe unfolds as it should, even in the face of drought. May we consider our seeds of hope and have the courage to plant new seeds, even when conditions seem to go against us.
The sun comes up, it's a new day dawning. It's time to sing your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul, worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul, I worship Your holy name. slow to anger. Your name is great and your heart is kind. For all your goodness I will keep on singing. 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I worship your holy name. And on that day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come, still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before. Oh my soul, I'll worship your holy name.
So I invite you to just breathe and to center yourself as we pray together. And just like yesterday, I will do the red and Gordon, along with you, will do the black. God who gives sun and rain and all that is, we get locked in ways of planting that are too focused or too limited. We think they will work anywhere, but they quickly dry up and blow away.
Give us courage to continue planting even when conditions are not perfect.
We long for the good soil, the kind that just needs a little water now and then, and all will be well. We have so many hopes and dreams that we believe will change everything, will grow into wonderful gardens where all will bask in the light.
We are unprepared for the harsh sun.
We are caught without the tools we need to cultivate in these conditions. We keep trying to make things grow in the wrong spaces.
We seek wisdom as we consider how to tend the seeds that have been planted, even in harsh conditions.
May we continue to plant seeds of hope, knowing that not everything will grow. We ground ourselves in the Pia Nosso, the prayer that Jesus taught us as heard in Portuguese, the native language of Mauricio Araujo, the assistant to our Chinook Winds executive minister.
Pai nosso, que estais no céu, santificado seja o vosso nome. Venha a nós o vosso reino. Seja feito a vossa vontade, assim na terra como no céu. O pão nosso a cada dia nos dai hoje. Perdoai as nossas ofensas, assim como nós perdoamos a quem nos tem ofendido. Não nos deixei cair em tentação, mas livrai-nos do mal. Amém.
Good morning, friends. I'm reading from Matthew chapter 13, verses 1 to 6, and the version I'm using is the Voice. That same day, Jesus left the house and went to sit by the sea. Large crowds gathered around him, and he got into his boat on the sea and sat there. The crowd stood on the shore waiting for him for his teaching. And so Jesus began to teach. On this day, he spoke in parables. Here is the first parable. Jesus said, once there was a sower who scattered seeds. One day he walked in the field scattering seeds as he went. Some seeds fell beside a road, and a flock of birds came and ate all the seeds. So the sower scattered seeds in a field, one with shallow soil and strewn with rocks. But the seeds grew quickly and amid all the rocks, without rooting themselves in the shallow soil. Their roots got tangled up in all the stones, and the sun scorched these seeds, and they died.
Friends, I invite you to join me in prayer. Holy and gracious God, may the words that are now shared, may the quiet reflections of our own hearts be acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. This time of year, in the forgotten corner of southeastern Alberta, we are reminded of God in greening grass and waking buds on trees. I love to get out in my yard and split irises and dig compost and fresh dirt into flower beds. Like most dads, I'm a bit of a lawn aficionado. I aerate and rake and fertilize. I try to give my grass a good head start. Now, I don't go all Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino and growl, "Get off my lawn," but I do invite my kids to be careful, because in our semi-arid climate, lawns require a lot of care and water. And my spouse reminds me often that I shouldn't water so much. So there are years when there's a bare patch, a brown spot, a lot of sweat equity spent in pulling up dandelions. When my kids were much younger, there was always a brown spot where the toddler pool was. So if my grass isn't perfect, I tend to remind myself, I have 2 kids and a dog, and a partner who's tuned in to the earth that's our home. So let's fire up the barbecue and have a cold one. Meanwhile, across the street is my neighbor who rakes his grass and fertilizes it, sets his automatic sprinklers to go on 3 times a day, even if it's pouring outside. He cuts it with a pair of scissors, and the neighbors, as we see each other, comment, "Ooh, look at Richard's lawn. He must work so hard. His grass is so green and so perfect." And I'm like, yes, it is. On the inside, though, I'm screaming, if you watered as much as that guy did, you could grow your own rainforest. And hello, we've lived here for 5 years. There used to be car parts on our lawn. The person who had our house before was a mechanic. You haven't seen the plants we've planted and the work we've done. The neighbors, though, come by it honestly. It's human nature to be distracted by that shiny thing, or hold up the ideal, to covet thy neighbor's lawn, so to speak. I mean, just look at what we do with the parable of the sower. When we hear it, it's often with stained glass ears, and we want to head right for the good soil, where the growth is lush and the yields are plentiful. And we tend not to want to linger among the seeds that fell on the rocky ground, where they didn't have much soil, and they sprang up quickly. And when the sun comes out, they get scorched, and they have no root, and they withered away. We don't want to live with the misspent effort, the lost potential, and the hope that is dashed. We don't have a lot of time in the church for the rocky ground because we run too tight a ship, and budgets are just too lean to risk the effort on rocks. Yet I think about my mom, whose family emigrated here in 1939 from Ukraine to avoid the war that was coming. Her family took up a homestead on 10 marginal acres near Smoky Lake, and she swept dirt floors in a soddy and looked after her younger siblings while her older sisters and her parents were out moving rocks and stones, clearing land, making it arable. and ready for planting, seeding hope on the prairies. I think about my congregation. We worship in a large old church that seemingly impenetrable with its brick facade that rises from concrete and asphalt, surrounded by poverty, addiction, and mental health issues in a downtown that's ever evolving. Yet from all around our city, people come and they sing in a robust choir, and dozens of kids and youth learn in our youth programs and children's programs from teams of adults who want to share their faith. But Fifth isn't just about the inside. We reach out, and we're fairly serious about it. Last year, as we were gripped by the global pandemic, I came in because someone needed some assistance from our benevolent fund. And when I looked at the balance, I saw it had increased by $10,000. And I said to our office administrator, "What happened?" She said, "Somebody in the congregation knew that our benevolent fund was about to be hit, and hit hard because of what was happening. And they wanted to make sure we had enough to give away." And so more often than not, I get to be the one who says yes after people in need have gotten no after no after no. I get to be the one to see tears streaming down faces because with grace and with hope, needs are met. Yes, we can help you with that damage deposit. Yes, I can do that fifth step with you. Yes, we can get your base out of Hawk. Yes, we can get you work boots because you found a job. I lamented once that the privilege of being the person who makes decisions for the congregation on our benevolent fund sometimes weighs heavily. Sometimes I said to the congregation, I wonder if I ever get played. And God bless Floyd, who came up to me right after that sermon. He put his arm around me and he said, "You know, it's okay, Reverend Dave. If once in a while someone takes advantage, think of how many people we've helped who actually need it." Seeding hope in the city. Years ago, I was privileged to be a Greenbelt pilgrim, and I followed Barbara Brown Taylor around the Cheltenham racecourse because I'm a bit of a fanboy. And I remember one thing she said. She said, churches need to be careful in choosing sides because most of life is lived in the middle. And so it seems to me that we need to celebrate growth, no matter the kind of soil things pop up into. But we also need to not ignore the act of the sowing, because it is our job, with patience, with persistence, with prophecy, and with providence, to propagate the gospel and seed hope rooted in Christ, who time and again was not just drawn to the middle, but to the margins, because our God is found in the joy of harvest. Our God is found in the work of the planting, and our God is found also in the sorrow of drought and hail. She reminds us time and again that we are not alone. And so as we seed hope wherever it is we are, remember that we are not alone. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I said, it's alright. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's alright. It's alright.
So good morning. And once again, I'd like to lead us in a short ritual of stillness and quiet before we begin our day together. As I light this candle, I invite you all to find a comfortable place to sit and to be for the next couple of minutes. I invite you, if you'd like, to close your eyes and to take a deep breath. And just to, as you breathe out, just to let go. And to let go of any anxieties you may have brought with you. To let go of any concerns you have for today. And just allow yourself to breathe. And as you breathe, just notice. You may notice that as you breathe, your breath becomes slower and deeper. You may notice that your body begins to relax. And just for these few moments, just allow yourself to enjoy the simplicity of your presence and the awareness of your being. So I'm going to read a short poem, and then we'll sit in silence for a few moments, and then we'll begin our day together. This poem is called What I've Learned from the Dark. It seems we must be stripped of the skin of all we think beautiful before we open to the kind of beauty that can't go away. It seems sky must pour and howl like it will never stop before we notice the smile of our own forever sun. It seems we must hunt with starving, hungry eyes before we know this belly is and always has been full. It seems this wall, deep in the center, must be hammered down before we let soft, breathing hands curl in around us. Each drop of dark carries with it a candle of holy light. With each miracle breath, we are invited to turn toward the nearest whispering spark and, like mama bird sheltering her baby, like a pebble in stream's safe lap, listen. As we come out of silence, we ask again for blessings as we gather for another day. May we be present and open to whatever may arise in our hearts today. May we listen to each other and know that when we do, we hear the still small voice of God. Amen.
Flood this heart with assurance of your mercy. Fill this mind with knowledge of your love. Hold me fast through the deep and steady current How long till these tears are gone? Every hour, awake me to your presence. Shine your light brighter than the dawn. Send your joy, illuminate the darkness. How long till these tears are gone? How long till these tears are gone? My eyes on eternity above, where every lie is uncovered by your love. I'll fix my eyes on eternity above, where every lie, every shadow is uncovered by your love. Lord, you hear the pleading of the faithful. I search for you, hide not your face. Here I drift, a shell among the ruins. How long till these tears are gone? How long till these tears are gone? How long till these tears are gone? How long till these tears are gone?
Thank you for that wonderful time of worship. People have been expressing their gratitude in the chat. I invite now John Pentland to lead us in a time of what we're labeling missional conversation, but he will guide us through the next bit of our agenda. So John.
You're good, John. Take her away.
Can you hear me?
You betcha.
Okay, I think I go ahead, but I've only got a picture of me, which isn't particularly exciting. Is that so? Do I carry on?
Yes, that's the way it's supposed to be. Everybody gets to see you, John.
I don't think John is hearing any sound.
Okay, I'm glad you get to see me. My last day with my beard. I'm giving my mother, who's 93, a Mother's Day gift tomorrow because she hates my beard. She every week watches church, and her comment is often the same: church, good, beard disgusting and has told me that I'm not welcome in Ontario until it's gone. So I'm going to shave it off for Mother's Day tomorrow. I am John Pentland at Hillhurst United Church. Been there 16 and a half years. There's a banner out front of our church that says, whoever you are, wherever you're at, join us on the journey. We have 4 core practices there. Hospitality. We believe when you eat and drink together, you're changed and you get to know each other's stories. The second is spirituality. Not all people are religious, but all people are spiritual beings, and we try to nurture the souls of people who are coming through our doors. The third practice is social justice. How do we take what we say and sing and take it into the world throughout the week to engage in our society and in our culture? And it's all grounded in risk, because to be faithful in a church, you've got to take risks. You can't be afraid. So those are the 4 practices, and I'm delighted to be here this morning with you. As we move forward today, we thought we'd have a panel who would look at mission and what churches are up to. And most of you know that this has been a challenging time. We miss people gathering. We miss seeing each other. We miss connecting. And yet we're really delighted that places have found new ways of being church during this time. And so for our panel, we have 3 folks who will join us. Nancy Nourse from Northminster in Calgary, Trevor Potter from McKillop in Lethbridge, and Greg Wooley from Ralph Connor in Canmore. Will they be brought to the screen? There they are. Look at that. Look how happy they are. They're all smiling, cheerful. I'm kind of, you're all frozen, but, and I don't know how to keep going. Okay, I'm going to ask Ann Yates LaBerge, who's there to be my eyes. She can text me. So have you heard what I've said so far, everybody?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Okay, all right, we're going to carry
Good
on.
morning.
Okay, folks, so this, you all good?
Good morning.
Okay. Okay, so we know this has been.
Good morning.
I know this has been a tough time. I call this everybody good? Okay, so here's the deal. I've been doing this for over 30 years. This has been the toughest year in my ministry. Hardest working, feeling like I'm getting nowhere. I feel like I'm swimming in jello. That's the metaphor that I like to think about. But we understand that churches are finding new ways to adapt and change and engage. We wanted to hear from you 3 to invite us to hear a little bit of your story. Then we'll move into breakout rooms where others will have a chance to hear and share with each other. And then we'll come back to large group. So I'm going to actually start with Nancy, and the question's for all 3 of you, but we'll sort of, just because this is a little bit challenging with technology, begin with Nancy. Nancy, how have you found that the mission of your church has changed during time of COVID? And number 1, how are you? And then 2, how's your church changed?
Good morning. Yes, I'm finding, because the 4 of us are using a different platform, the sound is a bit choppy, but I'm going to just go ahead and trust everyone who's at the Zoom meeting can hear us. Yeah, so how times have changed in COVID. Well, for us, it has been a challenge. A year ago in March and April, we felt like we were really reinventing the wheel, doing everything we could to keep everyone connected. Northminster moved into Facebook Live worship from my living room right away. And then it was through the summer, as we adapted and learned, we moved back into the sanctuary. We've been back there since September for live streaming. I think what's changed for us has certainly been how we connect, but we've been really able to thrive. And moving on to live stream, for example, was something we should have done years ago. And we had we had a newcomer Sunday recently where 7 people became members, and 3 of them were people who'd never been inside our sanctuary before, but they've connected with us through live stream and have watched us Sunday morning. And so it's been a great way that we've reached out and connected with the community. We've still been able to offer so many of our programs using Zoom, and have always remembered these last years when we've done programs in our church. We've always been mindful that a church is never a private club, and everything we do should be for community and not just the congregation. So, like years ago, youth group movie night became community movie night, and what else? The Sunday school picnic became the Father's Day community barbecue, and so on. So we've been able to continue with that. We partner with the City of Calgary and the Aboriginal Friendship Center on a lot of truth and reconciliation programs. Those have been able to continue on Zoom. So just always looking for ways that we can connect with the help of technology on our continuing partnerships, which have been really central to us. So I could say we've been thriving, not just trying to survive. So it's been a great learning for us that indeed we can do it, and we're considering a possible redevelopment of Northminster down the road. And one of the biggest fears used to be, oh, how would we be without a building for a few years? Well, we've learned that really well, that we can still be the church. So I guess that's been the year for us. It's been a good learning and a really positive experience this year.
Thanks, Nancy. I think that's the thing, churches, what we found during the pandemic is that things that we hummed and hawed about suddenly are happening, like online worship or dropping the things that weren't working and picking up the things like a renovation. So there's been an impetus during this time too, and we've learned through that. Let's hear from, I'm going to go to Trevor, sorry, if that's okay. Trevor, you're in Lethbridge. You've heard a bit of Nancy. What's some of your story you want to share?
Can you hear me? Well,
yes.
I hope you can hear me. Oh, good. Technology, this whole thing with technology has been, stressful for lots of people, and when you try something new, it's a risk, as you said, John. So we've sort of been taking some risks and found that the pandemic has opened up some avenues we never imagined before. It's been exhausting at times, but also sort of interesting. And so for us, part of our, I don't know if you call it motto or values, is we've been talking about for a number of years here in Lethbridge is that if our community thrives, we thrive. And so actually for us, God is outside the walls of our church. God is just, the divine is just not here in the morning on Sunday at 10 and 11:30. That the divine is this emergent flow outside, waiting for us to actually partner with other people. So we've done like many. We were actually doing a live stream long before the pandemic, but we've done an experiment of doing worship in a studio instead of a stage, which is the sanctuary, and it's been really interesting. It's amazing how our Facebook following grew from around, I think it was 400 before the pandemic, and we've just, I think, reached 1,100 followers. And it's been a form of ministry with people across the country. We try to support our community with masks. We have produced over 2,500 cloth masks that have given away free to the community. We did a mask campaign in Lethbridge through Facebook, which we boosted, and it was called "Wear a Frickin' Mask" in August last year. It was a little controversial, but it got people's attention to wear masks. We've had Zoom studies where people have decided to join from Alaska and Winnipeg. We have people that have nothing to do with Sunday morning. For instance, we had a braiding sweetgrass book study by Robin Kimmerer. I'd recommend that book to anybody. And we had 2 Potawatomi First Nation people join it. And it was like they were ministering to us in the Zoom. The thing that we've tried to continue is our partnerships with others in the community. And we had a partnership with the Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization before this for a program called 4 C's, or 3 C's, cooking, conversation, and companionship. And they used to use our kitchen. We would host it, and it would be for seniors. Like one man said, all I cook after my wife dies is hot dogs. So they learned how to cook. So we've gone online with that. And the executive director and I have been actually the chefs to try and make it a little funnier. So there's been all these opportunities to do experiments and to risk and to reach out to people and to find people that are searching for spirituality and community in the midst of this.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, isn't it amazing how suddenly church becomes a cooking show? And the people that show up on Sunday are not necessarily right from Lethbridge, but all around the world. That's the mystery and great gift of technology, to find people connecting to our congregations. And people from our church connect somewhere else. So they don't just stay at our church, they check out other churches, and that's a great thing. I think most churches are finding that people aren't showing up Sunday morning the most, that it's actually during the week when they have a chance to revisit what's going on. So it's no longer about an hour on Sunday, it's church full on throughout the week. Okay, we'll pedal back to you in a moment. I'm really glad to see Greg here. Greg is in Canmore, I think, which is where I am, funnily enough. But Greg, you're at Ralph Connor, and we know it's not a rural setting, but we know it's a smaller community setting. Say something about what's going on for you folks.
Well, I guess one thing that comes to mind with everything I've heard so far from Nancy and from Trevor and from you, John, is if you were a congregation that was fairly outward looking to start with before the pandemic, that's likely something that you've carried with you into these days. And then you add some creativity to that and you figure it out. So just a couple of words about Ralph Connor. I would describe it as a medium-sized congregation in a small little building right downtown that has a big heart for mission and a big openness to the community. And so parts of that have worked in our favor. That openness has worked in our favor. The size of building has not. And so any times that we've thought, well, maybe we'll be able to do a little something in person, or we'll be able to do some community outreach in person, that has been very difficult. Our building, our sanctuary seats 80, and typically on a Sunday we would get about 65 people in worship. So unlike a number of places that have great huge buildings and little congregations in them, thinking, well, how can we redeploy this? It's been hard for us to redeploy the building for much of anything other than we've continued hosting AA through the whole time. But other than that, we also transitioned to being online really quickly. We chose to do YouTube services, and as Trevor was mentioning, we now have twice as many people worshiping with us on a Sunday as we ever did when we were in person, including a little bit of a fan club in the UK, which has been an interesting thing to get used to. One thing that we did really quickly, which was different for us because we are such an outward-looking congregation, we had to make sure that we turned some of our energy inward through a phone contact tree. And that was set up almost instantly and has been a great point of contact within the congregation. Beyond the congregation, what we've learned is there's pretty good community out here for a community that has as many transient folks and part-timers as there are. There's good connections. We would often phone someone and say, is there anything you need? Can I go to the store for you? And the answer was, I've got this very nice neighbor that I'd just sort of getting to know. And every time they go out, they ask me if I need anything. And so a lot of those needs were already looked after, which spoke to us volumes about Christ's work already being done. Anything else that I should mention? One thing that we did do back in the fall was outdoor services. We rented a ball diamond. We worshiped 3 times outdoors. And on a ball diamond, you can be way more than 2 meters apart. So that's one thing we are hoping, is that as we get to a point of safety where people can gather, that there's a bit of a look from the powers that be at getting us outdoors in a healthier environment than trying to stuff us back into our little wonderful little building.
So folks, just want to throw in for you panelists, you can mute yourselves when you're not speaking. We are getting some feedback coming from your side. So if you could do that for us, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. Greg, were you finished your piece? Greg. Can everybody else hear me?
Yep, and Greg was done. He nodded.
Okay. Okay, that's great. That's another
we can hear
shift
you.
that
It's just a
pandemic
delay.
Yeah, okay. One of the other things that you've highlighted, Greg, is that when people say, okay, the church building's closed, but things continue, and have been very creative, whether it's been drive-through worship or meeting in a baseball diamond or outside. So we're finding new ways to gather because the buildings don't limit our connection, or they shouldn't, or contain God. Everybody knows that. So been creative about where we've met. So it's interesting how these different shifts, and you've all touched on different ones, about how we've been about our mission in different places and spaces. The last question before we move into our small groups, when you think about who you're trying to reach, are you intentional in your mind as a community about your mission, about who is on your radar? I'll just go back to Nancy.
Are we intentional about who we reach? I'd say yes. For some time, like say moving from in-person worship to live stream, but for some time we've been fairly intentional as a congregation, even around the language we use in church. So certain words are really like unfamiliar words today would be words like narthex, right? Instead of like a lobby or gathering space, or benediction instead of maybe just a blessing, or things like that. And so we had already pivoted in that sense to sort of the language we use that would be recognizable, understandable, connect, an easy way to connect for anyone who might have come through our doors, but certainly would still fit for someone who connected with us via live stream for the first time. So that's been helpful. We've looked at, of course, age groups and so on too, and tried to make it friendly for everybody who might be involved, and also realizing we might not be able to connect with, say, every age group in one moment, but there are a number of different opportunities throughout the week or the day that are accessible and advertised for everyone. And then, of course, still the folks who can't use technology at all. So how do we connect with those folks? Greg, you mentioned your phone tree. We have something called Communicare, which is a pastoral care program from Calgary Presbytery years ago, where we have a team that phones almost everyone on our congregational list 3 times a year just to check in. We send out worship home packs, about 30 of them every 6 weeks or so folks can still worship at home if they can't access online. So it is multifaceted, isn't it? How does everyone stay connected and included? And it's been, well, we might have been intentional before. I think moments like this help us really reevaluate and assess everything we're doing to make sure it's a fit and that it's including everyone who needs to be part of it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. What about you, Trevor? Is your church or you intentional about who you're seeking to connect with or be part of transformation?
I think we are, although I think sometimes we don't name it as intentional. I think there's some energy, like we're a church that's sort of between the pastoral size and program size, and caught in between sometimes, and sometimes in the past too. And so I think there is some intention that, well, everybody should come on Sunday morning and be like us. But I think there's also a shift in our vision that we want to, our vision or intention to connect with people is anybody that wants to partner or where we can partner with people. And it doesn't mean that you have to be a member or come here on Sunday morning. If we can partner with the healing of our human systems and partner with actually our reintegration with nature and the environment. And so I know with the whole coal mining in southern Alberta is that we've been trying to partner with other groups like Alberta Wilderness and a bunch of other groups to support how we stop mining in Alberta, for instance, is one of the ways we've been conscious. We've also sort of go where the energy flows too. I think we don't have to be everything to everybody, and we're sort of realizing we can't be everything to everybody. We have finite resources. So, you know, where the energy flows, maybe that's where our attention needs to go. And so we've had, for instance, I think any church can do this. We've got over the last 3 or 4 years $75,000 from the New Horizons Seniors Grant to do ministry in partnership with others in Lethbridge around senior ministry. And so, you know, we're reaching out that way too. And yeah, so it's that, and as you said before, John, it's the curious. And I think that's sort of slowly percolating down into us, is that we are intentional to connect with the curious in the community and hopefully hear how the curious can minister to us and how we can grow and partner and change together. It's not about them coming inside and integrating to be us.
That's right. That's good.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's, I think people are discovering that the communities around us, wherever we live, are looking to the churches. And I'm out with Dog Park every day. People want to know what are you doing? How's the church being relevant? And people who don't probably ever intend to step in or want to know still what we're up to, because there is certainly a reputation that churches have, and they hope we're engaged and we're curious about them just as they with us. What about you, Greg? Are you intentional about that, or is it happenstance? Not that either is the right answer.
I guess a bit of both. We have been pretty intentional about certain groups that we are reaching out to, largely as people bring good ideas to us saying, would this work in outreach in a certain area? The answer is generally yes. And so we had these things going. Some of those were really connected to being in person. Things like we have a large healing pathway group, and they needed to look and say, well, we can't do healing pathway treatment sessions in the sanctuary anymore. So what can we do? Well, they set up a prayer team, which has been a wonderful gift to us. Our young adult network has been a great place of connection, but it relied on pasta dinners, which they can't do in person anymore, and said, well, we can do a few things online. Let's try doing games nights, and let's try doing yoga by distance. And so each of us have had to figure out these places where we can connect, even though we can't be in person. One thing I do need to flag is, and I know, Trevor, that the congregation you serve has a very strong contemplative aspect to what you do as well. That's been a big thing for us for 20 years now. And that contemplative foundation has been a great, I don't want to say drawing card, but it has drawn people in on Wednesday nights when we do a Zoom. There we have folks from the coast and from other nations and from the community that are just interested in going deeper, especially as they're spending a lot of time at home. So that has been a different kind of intentional outreach, but it has been very fruitful.
Okay, and that's helpful too, to remember that some of the programs that have been around a long time have taken on a different nature through this pandemic time, not just with the numbers, but suddenly there's an interest in it that there wasn't perhaps before, or to the same level. And I think most places have discovered that too. There's I've been an awakening, or as Trevor used the word consciousness. That's probably the call of all of us, is to be awake and paying attention and conscious to our particular communities. So I think what we're going to do is invite people to breakout rooms, Alan. I don't know how you do that, but I'm sure you know how. What we're hoping to do is put people into breakout groups and have this similar kind of conversation where you have a chance to say something about your experience of your church. What have you found about your mission? How has it changed? And what can we learn from each other? So I'm going to recommend maybe that we do that for 15 minutes and then come back to the larger group for 15 minutes. Does that sound like a good way to go?
Works for me. Breakout rooms coming up.
Remember, it's not a competition. It's just an invitation to share what's new. What are you discovering about the mission of your church?
So John, you are live again, and folks will show up over the next 30 or so seconds. So not everybody is there, but they're coming.
You give me the signal when to start.
So welcome back, folks. We gave you a bit of time to come out of your breakouts, and slowly folks are coming back. We got about 15 seconds before everybody will be back with us. I don't like to cut those conversations. Everybody here joining now. And John, I think you should be good to take her away.
Okay, well, we're glad you're back. Hopefully you had a chance to share something about what's going on wherever you are in the region, what you're learning, what's been a innovative piece or what's been a challenge. We want you to encourage you to go to the chat, which we have open to type some questions in for our panelists. And so as you're doing that, just as we get there, so type in your questions in the chat. And Greg, I've heard something about a program that's been quite missional in Canmore about the environment. Can you say something about that as the questions come in?
Absolutely. The program, and you may have seen about this on the Chinook Winds mailouts and on the website. It's called Green Exodus, and it was an idea that was presented to us, and it was just the right idea at the right time. So Sarah Arthurs from Calgary, from Hillhurst, floated this idea and wondered if anyone out in the mountains might be interested in hosting the first run of it, and we said yes. And what it does is it brings together that contemplative stream that I mentioned earlier, and a deep concern for the sacredness of creation. And many people are involved in that. And, you know, we've got some very tangible things going along that line out in Canmore. We're just on the verge of putting solar panels on the church. So, oh, well, there's another place that intersects with us. And a huge note of thanks to Tony Snow for his contribution to that group, because Tony has really grounded all of what we're doing in Indigenous spiritual understandings. And that was already something that was a growing area for us as well. So it's interesting the way sometimes something will come from outside as an idea, and it will bring together elements looking at in ways that can then flourish and reach out to people. So that has been a great thing for us. And the little advertisement, Green XA, and they continue to meet every Friday at 4 o'clock, though it's now hosted out of Calgary rather than Canmore, and they're looking for future host communities as well.
That's awesome. I'm going to be in touch with you about the solar panels, because we're engaging in a renovation, and we've been told that we can't do it in our space, but our space isn't that similar to yours, so we'll have to have a chat. And the question is, how can the region assist in your ministry? So when you think about the work that we're doing, how do you see the connection to for this? How can the region support the work you're doing? Anybody alive out there?
I can go first. I think it already is for me. I think, first of all, the region's hired some very skilled professionals with expertise. Like, for instance, Shelley Dinhan, our communications, has got me onto some a podcast, and a person called Carrie Newhoff. And Carrie Newhoff had this article through a assistant that talked about what we've learned from online data during the pandemic. And they studied the top 20 companies and what they've done and how they've had to switch online themselves, like Nestle's and a whole bunch of other companies. And what they discovered is that that engagement and online stuff increases your engagement and awareness of your brand, and online's here to stay. So that's just an example. Like, I think our region is doing that, and I think also the region can support it by fostering partnership among all of us, so that we're not here to compete, but we're here, I think, in a time of liminal space where we have to start a lot of experiments. I used to be a scientist, so I think I see ministry as a lot of experiments, and there's no failure. You just get data, and from that data you can evaluate, see how it fits your values and mission, and then change. And so there's not this thing that we've tried this once before and it didn't work. And I see this in our new region, is that it's creating a closer connection among us, and a connection that doesn't have to be built on competition, but a common goal of the gospel.
I think lots of places have sensed that, connecting to other communities or other church communities to do this work during this time. It's forced may not be the word, but it certainly encouraged people to look beyond their own selves. I'm not seeing that many questions, but I'm seeing lots of churches that have been about the solar panels for some time. And of course, it all depends on the kind of building you have. Somebody, Nancy, were you going to say something?
I agree with Trevor that I feel great support from the region and all that's being put in place, whether that's for clergy support through the chaplains and the retreats and the things that we're able to connect with. I really appreciated the Queer Virtue book study that happened in Lent, because it was something my congregation could participate in, because we're having the Affirming Ministries discussion right now, without me having to lead that specifically. And so that made me think too, sometimes maybe there are 4, 5, 6, 8 churches often having the same conversation. And so how can we collaborate and share the leadership? And that really affirmed that for me. So I'm grateful for the support. So yes, communication, again, like Trevor mentioned, support of people like Joel Denhan and Sue Broderick for some resource people we need on some bigger conversations. So hopefully that will continue in our partnerships and our shared opportunities.
Yeah, and there's people saying in the chat that the region supported a food pantry at McClure and other ways to gather. I'm just reading here. Can the Chinook Winds region increase support of shared online ministry to rural and small churches struggling with the financial line for ministry? I think that there's been talk about how that's so important to have the support of the regions to do some of the technology that other churches may have had at the beginning of the pandemic, and then began to flourish through that. You know, I think too, we've seen lots of public, what I'll call public theology, where we've had to speak out and up about the role of the church during the pandemic. In particular, when we see anti-mask rallies, et cetera, et cetera. What about for the panelists? Have you found your people asking for you to be engaged, or the United Church to be engaged? What's your sense of the United Church's public theology around all of this during the pandemic? Anybody?
Well, I'll jump in on that one. I think one of the things that has been really helpful is the fact that we have had we've had the online or conference calls with Dr. Hinshaw and the Premier, and to be able to communicate to parishioners that, in addition to what has been happening through Chinook Winds, that there's been open communication, and where we are as the United Church is so clear that we're not rushing. We are not rushing in the way that others are pushing, but it's been helpful, I have found, to hear some of the more extreme positions that I'm sure people in government are listening to all the time and are being barraged by all the time, and to be so thankful to be part of a denomination that's coming from a different place than that. I've also valued the fact that out here in Banff in particular, there is a very strong ministerial that gets together actually on a weekly basis to talk through these things. And I think it's been helpful for them to be able to say, you know, I've got folks in my parish that are really pushing hard. And to be able to have other clergy to unpack that with has been a huge help in being able to say, yeah, none of us here are going to go there. We're just not.
That's
You know,
good. And I think that's part of the gift of the United Church. No, I was just going to say that's the gift of the United Church. There's a strong public theology history. Go ahead, Trevor. Then I have a final
Sorry, with
question.
the lag here. For me, the pandemic has been a gift to be pushed into it, to be honest, for me. And I've had to clarify that my politics are the politics of Jesus, because I think what's happening in Alberta has been a gift to the United Church. And I know probably in this region there's a whole diversity of partisan views. But it's helped me to clarify that my politics are the politics of Jesus and not one party. And to make that public declaration, which has been is sort of a risk for me. But you know, I think the policies of our government, if we want, allow us to name and claim who we are as the United Church of Canada in such clear ways right now, because they're just pushing so many things, at least for myself and how I hear the politics of Jesus, that we have to speak.
I would concur on that. I love it when I see and hear colleagues engaging in the media to clarify that's not somebody kidnapped Jesus and put duct tape on his mouth. And I think it's so important that theology that we do share that has a progressive leaning is there. And you're right, it's not a party, it's gospel or it's biblical. We have just a moment or two left here. You know, one of the things we're talking about in this Seeds of Hope talk has been about discipleship. Now, the challenge for me is that's a church word, which we all get. And Nancy, you talked about that, about language is so important. When you are talking to people beyond the church, if you say the word disciple, they might not be as friendly as you might think. How do the three of you go about your mission when you're talking and engaging with people beyond the church in the world?
Sometimes you think it's hard. Well, I do. Sometimes I think it's hard to come out as Christian in the world. Do you ever find that? Because Christianity does have such baggage right now. And I often want to catch myself saying, oh, I'm not that kind of Christian. I'll admit I want to say that. But so I think that's why it feels risky in certain situations, but it means it's more important than ever that we can't let that other voice be the only voice of Christianity. So whether that's being able to respectfully offer a very different opinion on social media, or whether, we don't get to have conversations at the coffee shop these days to be a voice at the table, but just those opportunities where we really take ownership of our values and our understanding of Christianity and being those disciples in the world, and come out as a different voice for the gospel.
Thank you. Either of you two have
I'm sort of like
thought.
Oh, I'm sort of like you. I find using the word discipleship is such a core word. It's so loaded. I think there's a great yearning out there, and I'm like, I'm like Nancy. It's like often when I went to my partner's work stuff, I'd want to hide in a corner. I didn't want to talk about religion just because of the baggage. But she's encouraged me to say that I'm a United Church of Canada minister because somehow our brand, if you want to talk that way, there's an openness to it. And through the pandemic has taught me that online it seems to be a safer place for people to touch in on our brand. And I think like there's people that are I just got a letter on my desk. I came into work today from Victoria saying, thank you for McKillop for your mission of being environmental. And I think they sent a check. And, you know, someone on Facebook did a birthday party fundraiser for McKillop and people gave to the church. So I think there's something there, but I don't have the answers. And I have some hesitation, to be honest, too, like Nancy sometimes. Over to you, Greg.
Okay. What I find is so much of it is just creating a spaciousness where conversation can happen. So in a way, it's not even so much about the language that we use as the invitation to listen to what the needs are and to make visible statements of various sorts. We're right downtown in Canmore, right on Main Street. And there's a grand total of 3 rainbow flags or rainbow stickers anywhere on Main Street. And all 3 of them are on our church. 1 flag hanging in my window and 2 little emblems on our sign. And the number of times that I see foreign visitors in particular, or from away, having their picture taken either beside the church with the rainbow flag or the sign with the rainbow emblem on it. That ends up being, I think, a door opener to those future discussions and further discussions. Same thing this week. We've had a red dress display that has been on the front of the church and very visible on Main Street with a very bold sign, thanks to Mary Shearer, that has articulated what that's about. So there's those other ways that we do public witness as well that maybe move beyond the words that we use.
I think, you know, if there's been one of the gifts of the pandemic, and we know that it's been challenging, there's been lots of loss, lots of grief, lots of challenges, has been it's actually pushed our doors open more to the world. Whether it's the things that are hanging out front of the church or way we're engaged in the media, the United Church is very hopeful in its theology. And that is the great gift, I think, of our church to the world. And the world desperately needs that kind of thoughtful, inclusive, affirming message for everyone during this time. Our time is literally coming to a close. I invite people to quickly look at the screen, not the 4 of us, but all of the other people you see. One of the things we're realizing is that the online is reminding us we're not alone in this. We have colleagues that are supportive and are supporting each other. And this is hard work. And I give thanks to the 3 of you for sharing some of your story and then inviting us to be in breakout groups to share our own. This is a really important time to connect and engage. So thanks for helping us consider our mission as we move ever slowly through this challenging pandemic. So I don't know what I do now other than say thank you and let Alan take us somewhere else. So thank you, the 3 of you.
Okay, folks, thank you so much, John, for leading that conversation with Nancy and Greg and Trevor. It is nice to hear. Know that this is a beginning, or we're at not at the end of this conversation. This is the beginning of a hopefully what will prove to be a rich and deep conversation about who it is in God's world that we're trying to serve and be God's people with. And so this is some of the work of the executive to recognize and to support. And we will be reaching out again and again and fostering conversations far into our region. And so again, this is just a beginning. And hopefully when we meet again as the region, and we do so as in person, we'll be able to spend some time together in different types of table groups and spend some really good time having these conversations together. So now we're going to move on to a time of memorial. We have a slideshow has been put together in memory of those people that have passed away recently within our region. And the time of memorials will be followed by a prayer by Gloria Snow.
Give thanks this day for many blessings. And I chose to be here in this land, in this place, with humbleness and grace. As we walk with God, as we follow through into right relations and the TRC commitments, I offer this prayer that we work in a good way. As we go forward, the wrongs committed to us in the churches, the wrongs committed to our ancestors is an important discussion to have. Today, as we honor murdered and missing Indigenous women as well, that's an important discussion. So I hope that we can have ways to discuss and really have a good dialogue about these issues, live out our right relations live out our apology. And I ask for Creator's blessing on all the people, those that are in mourning, those that are in need of healing, and those that are walking a road of difficulty. We ask for blessings and hope. And we thank you for giving this opportunity to do this short prayer.
Thank you very much, folks, for your time this morning. We are moving into a time of short break. It is, by my clock, 10:40. We are
so 5-minute break.
Yeah, we're going to resume in just 5 minutes. So if you can get up and do your stretches and grab a cup of coffee, and we'll see you again in 5 minutes. Welcome back, everyone. Before we move into our affirming discussion, I would like to introduce our next retiree, Tom Melvin.
Hello, colleagues and friends. I'm Reverend Tom Melvin, and I am delighted to be retiring the end of June.
Alan,
For me, that feels very hopeful
not
right
seeing
now.
the video.
I was ordained a deacon in the United Methodist Church in
Sorry about that, folks. Alan, shall we try that again?
wait a year. Hello, colleagues and friends. I'm Reverend Tom Melvin, and I am delighted to be retiring the end of June. For me, that feels very hopeful right now. I was ordained a deacon in the United Methodist Church in 1979, and after completing my seminary degree in 1982, I had to wait a year, and then I was ordained an elder in 1983. I moved to Canada with my family, my wife and I, in 1992. And in 1994, I was received as a minister into the United Church of Canada. And I've been very grateful to call the United Church of Canada my home for these long years since 1992. I have found hope in my ministry through the Affirming Ministries of the United Church of Canada and Calgary Presbytery and now Chinook Winds Region. And I'm very grateful to people like Brian Delarue, who has carried the affirming message to many congregations, many churches, and has helped to make the United Church of Canada more affirming, open, inclusive, aware, sensitive, and conscious of others. I'm also very grateful that we found hope when Deer Park decided maybe 5 years or so ago to hire a social worker, to bring a social worker on board so that we could be more responsive to our community and to those people who are in need. Most recently, Deer Park and St. Andrew's United Church have been working together for about the past 6 or 7 years. It began with working together for Sunday morning worship and Sunday morning programming for children and youth. And of course, it has evolved into other ways of working together. Now we are deep into a conversation about amalgamation. Two churches coming from their areas of strength to become one church, to become a church that serves others and God in the world. And that feels very hopeful, and I'm excited about that. And I guess I will be watching with interest from the sidelines. I've also been very fortunate over these past several years to work with some of our very young talent in the United Church of Canada. I have been thrilled to have worked with Reverend Catherine Elston. I have been delighted to work with Reverend Hilary Van Spronson, who will be returning back to work after her year of maternity leave. And I've been very fortunate in this past year to work with Ms. Amy Haynes, a candidate and student for ministry. And I'm excited and hopeful that the candidacy pathway in the United Church of Canada will find ways to honor the gifts of some of our talented people who are coming through the channel seeking ordination and a place to serve God and Christ in the world. I'm also very grateful for our volunteers, and somehow this past year the pandemic has made me appreciate volunteers much more, and especially those who have helped us to adapt and to change. I want to thank Richard Betts, who has helped us to be able to broadcast our services, not only for our members, but for people around the world. It's been a great learning experience, and it's given myself hope and many others hope. As we kind of wrap it up here at the end of my ministry, I do believe in the United Church of Canada, and I believe in what we say, that we are called to be the church. We are called to celebrate God's presence, to live with respect in creation, to love and serve others, to seek justice and resist evil, to proclaim Jesus crucified and risen, our advocate and our hope. And just one thing I'll throw out there, I use advocate instead of judge. For me, that feels more hopeful. and more attuned to what I believe about the person and the work of Jesus. Thank you. It's been great. God bless.
Tom, well done, good and faithful servant. It is with gratitude for your faithful and loving service given to God, our world, and our church that we offer blessings upon your retirement. Thank you, Tom, for everything that you've done for the church and in the community of Calgary. I now turn to Keith Murray, who's going to begin our affirming conversation together.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Keith Murray. I use they, them pronouns, and I've been working with the Regional Affirming Working Group for a while now, and I'm really excited to meet with you to facilitate a discussion about affirming on the regional level. So the question we want to hold in our hearts and minds is, if you joined an affirming regional council and no one told you it was affirming, how would you know? So I want to share with you a little slice of pie. If you haven't heard of PIE before, P-I-E, it is an acronym which stands for a sort of litmus test or a way that we can evaluate how we are affirming. So during our time together this morning, we're going to have 2 breakout rooms where we will explore how we can be the P-I-E in PIE, public, intentional, and explicit, and how we can do this about our affirming ministry as a region. So while we're still in this process as an affirming working group and as a region, this is going to give us valuable information, your feedback, as we keep planning events and engaging in opportunities moving forward. But first, I want to give you a few examples. So I'm going to give you some biblical examples and then some contemporary ones about what PIE is all about. So in the ministry of Jesus, how was Jesus public? I think a great way of thinking about this is Palm Sunday. Jesus, in a lot of ways, held a pride parade for the kingdom of heaven. You know, there was an imperial parade of the Roman occupation of Jerusalem, but it was important not to have a private ministry, but a public one, to walk through the streets and let people know that there was another way of being in the world, because there were people who needed to see and hear the good news. This is why we need to be public. So I want you to keep this in your hearts as we explore the conversation today. What about intentionality? How was Jesus intentional? Well, we know that throughout his ministry, he constantly reached out to the margins and intentionally included and worked to heal and bring people together that were left to the margins of the community. When a lawyer asked Jesus how he could fulfill the law as told in the Gospel of Luke, and Jesus answered, "You should love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." He didn't just stop there, but he intentionally went on to tell the story of the Good Samaritan, how a community that had been othered by the Jewish communities, how there was an exemplary person who took care of a dying Jew at the side of the road. So he looked to bring in the virtue of the others and intentionally preached about how people who are othered are integral to the kingdom of heaven. I hope we can hold this in our hearts this morning as we explore what it means to be intentional. How about explicit? Was Jesus ever explicit? So this is one that Darren is going to host in the second set of questions, but I just want to think about a biblical example of this. You know, when Jesus was asked about how to interpret the law around marriage in Matthew 19, he went on to volunteer talking about a different group of people. He explicitly named 3 types of eunuchs. These were people who didn't fit into the gender norms of the time. And he went on to say that though they didn't fit into the conventions around gender and marriage, that these people existed and were a part of our society and culture. So how can we explicitly name those who have been left out and remind them that they are included in the kingdom of heaven? I hope we can hold this in our hearts today. So I want to share with you some examples of ways we can be public, intentional, and explicit here with some images. So here is an example of public. This is St. Andrew's United Church in Lacombe. A public symbol of a rainbow flag is a great way to let people who know who have been intentionally excluded by Christian communities that they are welcome. another example. This was during, this was in Calgary at City Hall, and members from faith communities across the region came together to let City Council know that we supported publicly protections to prevent LGBTQ people from being persecuted through forms of conversion therapy practiced by churches that do not allow LGBTQ people to live as who they are. So this is a great example of how we can be public. Another one, communion in the streets. This one I think is public and intentional, because intentionally going to a place where people in the LGBTQ community have been excluded from communion, maybe have not even had it in their lives because they've never felt safe or welcome in a church. We had stories of people saying this is the first time they've had communion in years since being kicked out of the church. And it was a healing experience about being one body together in Christ. So there's lots of ways we can be public. How about intentional? This is Harlan Pruden, a Two-Spirit Niha Cree man from Northern Alberta, and is currently a scholar at UBC doing his PhD in Two-Spirit studies. Intentionally for the Affirm United conference, we brought him to Treaty 7 area, but intentionally then used our ability to bring him here to support working and collaborating with a marginalized community here, and funded a workshop where he worked with Voices YYC, racialized and Indigenous community members, and was able to then bring his gifts and teachings to the community that is marginalized here. And because of this, we developed a strong relationship with racialized members of the community. And this is another example of intentional. So Hillhurst United Church was the first public building to raise the new Pride Progress flag. It received a lot of international attention for this. So if you don't know about this new Progress Pride flag, it takes the 6 traditional colors of the rainbow and includes also the colors of the trans flag and black and brown to include the intersectional members of our community who are racialized, Black, Indigenous. And the Black also represents people who have died from HIV and AIDS and those who still live with the stigma. So it's an intentional symbol that is public that continues to make people feel included. Here, I love this photo. As you can see, many members of our refugee community and also members of the Indigenous Two-Spirit community feeling welcome together under this new banner. So explicit, which Darren will facilitate in the second conversation, I want you to think about the affirming statement. You may have heard this story before, but my first time at Affirming Church, there was a floor-to-ceiling rainbow. But I just maybe assumed that this was from a Noah's Ark play that happened the day before. I didn't know if this was a safe place for me. And so this is Lakeview United at their Affirming celebration, sharing in the space, naming explicitly who is welcome and included and affirmed, and it's important. So I want you to think about that as you do this work together. So we're going to go into breakout rooms and ask the questions. The first breakout room, I want you to take a chance and get to know each other, share your names, and if you want to be intentional, you can share your pronouns as well. And there'll be 2 questions we're going to type in the chat here, and we're going to focus on public and intentional for the first breakout room. So the question is, and please assign a scribe when you come back into the plenary. We want you to type into the chat any thoughts or ideas that you've come up with. This is really going to help us as we continue moving forward as an affirming region. So the question is, what would it mean to you for the region to be intentionally affirming? The second question, how would being a publicly affirming region change or enrich what you do? I'm going to put these in the chat here. And then if we could please have people called to the breakout rooms, I will stop screen sharing here. And we look forward to hearing your valuable input around these questions.
Keith, can you confirm for me how many minutes?
We're going to do 12 minutes.
Perfect. Thank you. So folks, you'll have 12 minutes. So folks, you should have gotten an invitation to join a breakout group. You will need to accept that invitation in order to join them. It should have popped up on your screen now somehow. If you're on a mobile device and it popped up and you didn't hit it properly, if you tap your screen, it'll say breakout rooms in the upper left. If you're on a computer, you should have the option along the bottom. You might need to click the more to find it. And if you just want to hang out here for the next 12 minutes, you are most welcome. It will not be the most exciting place, but you are most welcome to hang out here.
If there's anybody in here who is struggling with joining the breakout group, just let us know and we can try again to send you there.
Welcome back, everyone. Never enough time, is there? Please, if you can, as you're coming back into the room, just type into the chat any thought or I know you all had a rich conversation, I certainly did, on what it would mean for the region to be public and intentional as an affirming ministry, how it would support what you do and what it would mean to you. We see some great stuff coming here. It would mean the level above our communities of faith offers leadership that supports and encourages and helps congregations navigate affirming ministry. Continued shared learning, sponsoring and being involved in community events. We see an openness to discussion with no opinion being wrong. Sharing of resources such as flags and studies. These are all great. Yeah. It might help support rural communities who can't be public, but can be inclusive. These are all really good thoughts and conversations. Please keep them coming because your feedback is going to be really important to the programming that we do as we continue on this affirming journey together. I want to pass the mic over to Darren, who's going to lead us in a conversation around explicit, the third letter in pi.
Okay, thanks, Keith. And I'm going to start with a story. It was 1985, and I was a first-year seminary student in Vancouver. And I was looking for a place to attend worship. And a friend of mine at the seminary said, well, come to my church. It's very welcoming. You'll quite enjoy it. And when I got there, it was Rally Sunday. So the first Sunday in September where congregations kind of celebrate their ministries and what they're all about. And I was quite impressed with the sermon. It was very progressive and felt very inclusive. As the groups presented what they did for the congregation, I thought, wow, they do a lot. They had some work for single mothers, women from abusive relationships. They did some works with First Nations people. They had a food bank for the homeless in the area. They welcomed gay and lesbian groups who rented space there, and it seemed to be a very good place. And I thought at the end of the service, I'm going to attend there. But then came coffee time. And as one of the seminary students who was there, we were presented to the matriarch of the church, who was blind. And I could hear my fellow students go up there and be introduced, and you'd hear names like Smith and Johnson and that. And then I came up to talk to her, and I said, I'm Darren Leopold, and I'm from Moose Jaw. And she got a very troubled look on her face. And she said, Leopold? Well, that doesn't sound very West European for a minister, but I guess that's okay. And suddenly the welcome that I heard in the sermon and in all the groups disappeared. And I felt very much alone there. And it didn't feel like a safe place where I could go to worship. And I think that goes where we talk about being an explicit congregation and how we do a welcome for others. Now, we realize congregations are at different points in their journey. Some are affirming, some are thinking about, others realize they just can't go there. And in my small group, that was all represented in amongst the groups as members that we talked. But we realized that what would it mean if the region becomes an affirming region? For us, that means that it wouldn't affect each congregation, in that if the region becomes affirming, that doesn't automatically mean that your congregation has to be affirming as well. But what it means is that in the region's activities, in the literature that's produced, in information that's given on the website, in sort of the welcome that new ministers get when they come to the region, they would understand that the region as a whole welcomes others. And I'm thinking about how this doesn't mean that your congregation may not feel that way. I heard a presentation from East Central Presbytery region as they were talking about their affirming journey. And one of the members there said, it doesn't matter that each congregation is not affirming. but I know that in the structure, if it's there in the whole region, that I can find other places where I can find support and nurture. Now, this welcoming ministry is very important. As another speaker on that video said, this is a life-saving opportunity where people who are struggling with finding a place to be know that somewhere in that United Church or in that region, they can find a place where they're celebrated for who they are. And so it's very important, we feel, that the region takes the step of being an affirming region, one where it welcomes others. And so people will know that they can come here and that they can find somewhere in the region people who are supportive, people who are encouraging, people who allow them to be who they are. We also know that if the region becomes affirming, there will be resources available for those congregations that are there, but not quite. Like that congregation in Vancouver so many years ago, that congregation will be able to find the support it needed to make that final step to be a welcoming region. And so I'd like us now to break into small groups once more. And the first thing that you'll be asking to think about is, say next year we do decide as a region to become an affirming region, how would one know? If you were visiting here from a new place, like my Sunday that first year in Vancouver, how would I know that this is an affirming region? And if one was to come to Chinook regions for the first time, how would we demonstrate that? I know Keith at one of our planning meetings said, well, maybe we could give each congregation a glitter cannon. Well, I don't think that quite works. But how could we demonstrate being that we are an affirming region to others? And how might we engage others in this process? Those congregations that are struggling, those congregations that know they themselves could not be an affirming congregation. And what would you be willing to do to get as many people as possible to participate in future affirming events over the next year? So you have 11 minutes in breakout groups to talk about these subjects, about how would one know that we were an affirming region, and how would we show that to others? So if you can break into breakout groups now.
Once again, folks, you should have gotten an invitation to go to a breakout room. If you did not, please indicate in some way in the chat. Oh, there's some of you who haven't gone yet because I just kept the same ones. I'm sending you now, don't worry. Other folks, please indicate if you have not gotten assigned yet. One more of you people who came late. Okay, everybody should be assigned now. If you haven't been invited to a breakout room, please let me know. If you want to hang out here, you're most welcome. Feel free to hang out in this super exciting space. And otherwise, you should find, if you tap your screen on a mobile device, you should get the option for breakout room. On a computer, down at the bottom with that menu with the microphone, etc. You should have breakouts. If not, click the more and the 3 dots and you should get breakouts as your option. And while I recognize that a countdown timer is not interesting, it is more interesting than nothing. So I thought I'd put up a countdown timer so we know how long we're waiting for folks to join us again.
You're the
Thanks,
best, Alan.
Well, I don't know about the best, but it's something. Do we all feel the excitement once it gets down to 1 minute and 30 seconds?
Right?
It's just like, oh, it's coming. They're going to be back soon. So exciting. Sorry, I just got bored sitting here waiting, staring at the freaking clock. But, you know.
I was playing with my cat.
Oh, that's exciting. That's a good thing to do while you're sitting there waiting. If you have such a beast prowling your house.
Have 3.
Whee. And I hear you were trying to have a 4th that was trying to join your family.
Yes. Yes, he has decided that the neighbor's cat has decided that this is a better place to live than his house. So he keeps trying to sneak in, and he actually got in and we couldn't get him out for like a couple of hours.
Nice.
Yeah.
And extra people, you know, hanging out. It's all good. I'm sure you're friendly, loving people, and I'm sure your cats had no problem with a 4th cat in the house. Like, you know.
Actually, they didn't really mind, but he went in and went under one of the beds and we couldn't get him out.
Oh, yeah. Okay, people are probably slowly coming back, and I think they're all going to be kicked out here shortly. So I'll drop the little timer because at some point you'll notice that I didn't get it exactly timed to the timer that was already going. So let's just stop that before then. But folks should be making their way back now. There we go. Everybody's back. Okay, you're done with me now.
Thanks for the entertainment, Alan. I believe we're going to Bill Moore.
Thank you. Speaking on behalf of the group to kind of wind up this discussion, I believe that over the last year, while I know we've offered book studies, we've completed several surveys and polls. Many of you have attended town halls and listened into some of the presenters that we've had. And we're truly grateful for your engagement that you've joined us on our journey. And thanks to Pam and Chris for putting together a list of resources for us. The one that Pam did yesterday was totally awesome. And we would just ask that you would forward any comments or questions by email to Chris Malpoy of the church of the regional office. We also are recording your comments in chat, so we would encourage you to continue with that. But I want you, and our group wants you to know that your engagement in this process is truly valued. And on the group's behalf, I just want to say thank you for your ongoing support. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you very much to the Affirm Working Group for your Affirming Ministries Working Group for all the work that you have done and all the work you continue to do. It is a very important conversation that is still will be ongoing for a long time into the future. At this time, we're going to have another video from a retiree. I believe it's Eva.
Hello. In my early teens, in a conversation with my minister at St. Andrew's United Church, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, I remarked, "I want to be a minister." To which he replied, "Go be a teacher." Later, I told my mother the same thing, to which she said, "Don't be stupid, they don't ordain women." Well, I learned two things. I wasn't wanted by the church, and I was stupid. For those who know their church history, it was very much a hidden fact. Even in our church, Lydia Gucci was ordained in 1936. So I married, moved to New Zealand, had 2 children, came back to Canada, divorced, remarried, and every decade the call would emerge. I ignored it until I was 50, and in an incredible moment accepted my call. Oddly enough, a year to the day my mother died. The year of discernment was a gift, meeting with the faithful discernment committee, and I became a member of Presbytery. With the support of the Discernment Committee, I wrestled with many questions, and Reverend Harry Taylor sent me out to speak with a diaconal student, an ordained minister, and finally with Pastor Dr. George Takashima, before making the decision that would change my life. Finally, with the help of George, I knew that designated lay ministry made the best sense. Even though I had attended Athabasca University, I didn't have enough credits to take the short program. I was now 51, and in 7 years of university meant, if I retired at 65, I'd only have 8 years to serve the church that would invest in my education. It seemed a justice issue to make more of the time left in service than appeasing my ego through ordination. Serving pastoral charges in Fernie for 4 years, Maple Creek for 6 years, Prairie Spirit for 3 years, and Southern Alberta Japanese United Church has been a gift. To accompany, walk beside communities in their celebrations, decisions, and the opportunity to love them was an incredible honor. I took every opportunity to attend educational events in all 3 provinces, in Montreal and even once in Texas. This led me to share what I learned from the pulpit. It was a deep privilege to work for the church through 3 presbyteries in various committees, to accompany student ministers and congregations in their faithfulness, to be asked to work for the church sitting on the BC Conference Interview Board, Saskatchewan Conference Board, to lead worship for the annual conference meeting, and to be on the Women in Ministry Committee, and surprisingly, being asked to run for the Saskatchewan Conference President, which I respectfully declined. My absolute favorite service for the church transpired through Calling Lake Centre, to be invited to be part of their leadership for their 2-year licensed lay worship leaders course, to watch students grow and blossom, many moving into ministry. I loved the opportunity. Then to be invited to be part of the leadership with the DLM program at Calling Lake Centre, and then later at St. Andrew's Theological College, was very much a holy time. Again, to see growth and to help shape ministers for the future was an incredible unfolding service. I'm so proud of the students I had share in supporting. My buttons just burst when I see what they're doing. At this time, I've completed Pacific Jubilee's Spiritual Direction Program and have been asked to be one of the 4 companions for the 2020 to 22 students. Once again, to accompany, to walk beside in service, especially in this time of pandemic and beyond. Oddly enough, when I look back through the lens of service, my old minister may have been making a clergyism statement against women in ministry, but I was what he saw, one who loves to educate, to teach, even if he didn't see me as one to walk beside, to hold in prayer and love. What an honorable career. Do I wish I hadn't listened to him? Do I have regrets that I didn't just accept my call then? Well, no. I had the opportunity to live in 2 countries, raise 2 children, and in the words of Father Richard Rohr, experience is the greatest teacher we overlook in this world. Thank you to those who encouraged and accompanied me through this time. Thank you to the amazing congregations I grew to love. Thank you to the students who taught me. With much humility and gratitude to the holy who called, or rather pestered, and then welcomed me into the richness of service. And thank you to my mom, who would be so delighted for the daughter I have grown up to be.
Eva, well done, good and faithful servant. It is with gratitude for your loving and faithful service given to God, our world, and to our church that we offer blessings upon your retirement at this time. Thank you so much, Eva, for everything that you have given to the church. Now, I will invite or welcome Brenda Fawkes, our Office of Vocation Minister, to talk at us for a few minutes.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to be on screen and see you face to face. It still remains helpful for me to see names attached to faces on the Zoom screen if we can't be in person. I wrote a report for the book and the reports book, and I know that Trina and I were musing how many people actually have an opportunity to read those reports. So you may or may not have had a chance to look at what I shared there. Some of it I'll repeat, but most of it I'll leave for you to have a look at it in your own time. It has actually been 14 months since my feet have been on the ground in Chinook, in Calgary and surrounding area. But I will tell you that I have I asked my colleague, Karen Medlin, who's the OB Minister for Northern Spirit, to send me a map of Alberta, and I have it on my wall here. And every time I talk with someone and I get to know another various point of the map of the southern part of Alberta, I make a mark on it. So I'm gradually getting to know the geography, and those of you who know me that know that that's a steep learning curve. It's not my forte. So I appreciated greatly the theme of this gathering and particularly Jeff's comments yesterday, and found a definite many yeses in his theme speech about seeding and getting our hands in the soil and understanding the divine and the spirit via those ways. The farmery in Princeton is a bucket list for me, and particularly was so when I served as field education director at Vancouver School of Theology before becoming the OB minister. I also resonate with Lee in her report in the book where she almost doesn't want to name the pandemic and how ministry people are surviving that. But I do want to mention that about 6 months ago, we received some statistics. One of the great advantages of my work as Office of Vocation Minister is that I'm part of a national team deployed regionally, so I get to work in my own context, but I also have the resources, as Michael Blair talked a little bit of a broader circle of people. And we received a report from the United Church of Christ in the USA and other denominations that they partner with around the health and well-being of clergy, of ministry personnel. And it said that it was the highest rate of in recent history of folks wanting to leave ministry. And our team lead wanted to test the waters for us, each of us OB ministers in our own region, to say how much resonance is there. And at the time, I wasn't hearing that. I wasn't hearing that as a response to the pandemic. And I loved hearing the missional conversation earlier about the creative ways that people have pivoted. And so it is in my report, and it is heartfelt to say that I actually continually am amazed, surprised by the Spirit, by you, by the ways that people are supporting one another and finding strength in what has been a longer marathon than any of us imagined. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is there's 50% of my work is candidacy, and April provided a fantastic segue to that work because of the diversity of people who serve. There was talk yesterday about people feeling like dandelions, and then Jeff also referred to orchids. At one point in my life, when my children were in preschool, the preschool teacher said, you know, they say that children are like dandelions or orchids. Some will regardless of their environment, will thrive like a dandelion. They'll grow whatever patch they have, and they'll be resilient, and they'll be determined to not be uprooted. And some are like orchids, where they need a very sensitive environment. They need careful care. They need the exact amount of water and nourishment. They need the exact amount of light. And as this preschool teacher was telling me this, and then I said, my kids are orchids, aren't they? And she said, yes, your kids are orchids, but it's okay, Brenda, because orchids, when they bloom, they're beautiful. I think that was an attempt at pastoral care, but I think the conversation yesterday was we need both. Like, we have dandelions who fill in the cracks, as Amy was talking about, and who stand strong amidst all kinds of climate, and we have orchids that need support and care, and part of supporting ministry is both of those things, and both incredibly useful and incredibly beautiful. The General Council Executive met recently, and there was a passing comment that the Office of Vocation, and particularly Office of Vocation staff and ministers, are like the United Church's new secret police. All of us were taken aback by that, of course. It's hard not to feel defensive, but I was also amused by it, because as I responded to the rest of my team, it's okay, because I own a black SUV, so it is what it is. But my hope and prayer is that is not how the Office of Vocation is seen, that was a passing one-off. The Office of Vocation, as I shared in my report, the mandate is to support effectiveness in ministry. So, and to have an arm of the church that talks about vocation. So some of the best conversations, I mean, I have the incredible privilege to work with the Mountain Candidacy Board, and Vicki McPhee and Samuel Grottenberg from Chinook are on there, and they do amazing work supporting students and saying yes to call, so that those experiences, like April talked about, are not no's, but yes, and maybe some tweaking as to the particularities of a call. But that vocational support goes beyond students. It's also for determining sabbatical, for an objective conversation about what next in your ministry, even as we apply disciplinary policies like the sexual misconduct or the workplace violence or the standards and ethics is a way to improve effectiveness. It is absolutely true what Jeff said, that discipleship is important. I wouldn't say at the negation of leadership. I mean, obviously I'm in the business of helping to form leaders and feel quite passionate about it. And we can lead discipleship. For some, their discipleship is in paid accountable ministry, and that involves leaders. And I think the region, and particularly Trina's conviction around upholding and supporting leadership, is one I concur with, and I think helps to support the greater mission of the church. I hope that doesn't sound defensive. It's meant, one of the realities that the Office of Vocation is noticing is that it's still new. Somebody referenced earlier in the meeting that in the old days when we had presbyteries, that made me happy, because the old days was 2 years ago, and gradually people are coming to know what the role and function of the Office of Vocation is. And so in my report, I lead with accountability, which may or may not be of interest to you, but it's the accountability that goes to the Board of Vocation, which is an elected body to oversee the Office of Vocation. So if you're interested in statistics and kind of definitions of principles and values, I commend that report to you. I'd like to share a story that came up for me when Jeff was talking yesterday as well. When I was back in the day when we had summer internships. So 2 4-month internships that happened between years of doing our degree if we were in the ordination stream. We got to do summer internships, and I did one of mine overseas in India and one of mine in Saskatchewan, rural Saskatchewan, very rural. So I went from Vancouver with millions of people to Maidstone, Pentland in Saskatchewan, which is pretty close to the border of Alberta. And I lived in a town of 200 people, and I was a very serious student, and I was very determined to learn everything I needed to learn in that 4 months. And I had a long list of learning goals, and my lay supervision team said, maybe you're taking this a little too seriously. Your list is long, and is there anything you can do that's kind of fun? And I still had my checklist, skills, identity, pastoral care, that kind of thing. But I lived in a small house that was actually a part of the 200-person town for seniors. So they were 1-bedroom little townhouses that they had found for me. And every unit came with a garden plot. So I didn't know how to garden at that point, and it hadn't been a priority, but it was kind of like, what are you going to do? I mean, everybody grew food. That's what you did. And so I made a realization as I was asking for a lot of assistance from my neighbors on how to grow things. And they came from everywhere, seeds, things to start my garden. And I lived next to the manager of these housing units, who was Indigenous. And he shared with me, he would watch me kind of struggle or amuse him as I attempted to do something I didn't know how to do. And then he'd come outside and then he'd give me one little piece of advice, put some sand in your soil. Or one day I was watering and he said, why are you watering? If you're listening to the birds, you have to understand that it's going to rain later today. And so you're wasting water. I was very gracious with myself and accepting of other people's advice in that. Whereas in my own ministry formation, I felt like I had to know everything. I had to do everything right, or else I would never be admitted into ministry in the church. And the aha came for me when I realized how gracious I was with myself and others around something that I wasn't supposed, that I thought I didn't need to or was supposed to know how to garden. And but I wasn't that way in my own formation. So it's always been my approach, both in my work at BST and especially with our students, to provide the grace of learning and formation and the grace of increasing effectiveness. We don't stop learning. We don't stop making decisions in our vocational path. And perhaps not the moral of the story is I left at the end of August and I couldn't harvest everything that I had planted, which is always a good lesson for ministry. But I took my potatoes that had grown and I put them in a bag and I drove to Saskatoon and I handed them to a friend from seminary who lived in Saskatoon. And I said, I can't take these. I'm going on a plane, whatever, back to Vancouver. And her mom entered them into a local farmer's market and they won first prize for the best potatoes. They weren't my potatoes. Somebody had given me the seeds from their crop, but it went to show that the combination of that collective work bore good fruit. So just to end with some statistics, the last thing I did when I was on the ground in Chinook was meet with candidates. And we have a growing list of candidates from Chinook region, and that's awesome. There are 15 at various points in the process in various streams. We have 3 brand new applicants who we're going to interview shortly. We have 10 preparing for ordained ministry, 3 preparing for a diaconal ministry, and 2 preparing for designated lay ministry. Some of you will be given the opportunity to provide learning sites and gracious learning opportunities for them. And I hope you get the chance to do that. And thank you for those of you who are supervisors and offer that leadership for and with them. Happy to take question, but probably good for now.
Thank you, Brenda. In the interest of having lunch, we will encourage people, if they have questions, to send them onward, and hopefully then we can package them up if they come through the chat and get them to you. At this time, I'd like to invite,
maybe Brenda could host a Zoom room conversation. Yeah.
Sure.
If people have questions, yeah.
Happy to, yeah.
Okay. So we'll just hope that Alan is spot on for that. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Vicki Nelson to share an update from Stewardship.
Hello, everyone. I am actually going to share my screen and do a bit of a PowerPoint presentation. So I am Vicki Nelson, and I'm serving as the Stewardship Animator for Chinook Winds. I live and I work and I worship in Regina, Saskatchewan on Treaty 4 territory. And my background most directly is through United Church camping, but I've also worked in congregational ministry a bit too. And I've already had the opportunity to meet some of you folks from Chinook Winds, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know even more of you. I have just a couple minutes, so I'm hoping to share a couple useful ideas, things that I'm working on, things that are happening in stewardship right now. So first, I'm going to open with some questions, and if you want to jot down your answers, throw them in the chat, whatever makes sense for you, or just reflect silently. So what is your community of faith's mission? Maybe it's not the same as your mission statement. What are you doing at worship, as a community, or in your neighborhood that's changing lives? What inspires you to stay involved with your community of faith? What inspires new folks when they find you? And finally, if money was no object and you had unlimited time to devote to it, what do you dream for your community of faith? So here are some ideas to help you build on your already inspiring work. Called to be the Church, the Journey, is the first module is being offered across United Church and actually right now in Chinook Winds. It's that program has already seen inspiring results in other regions. Communities of faith that participated in 2020 saw an average of a 21% year-over-year increase in mission and service giving during the first quarter of 2021, or 2020, if that makes sense. And that's compared to an 8% reduction in mission and service giving from like a control group. So there's another chance to participate in that program coming up in August. And if you're interested, my email will be up at the end. Please do get in contact. You're in this Zoom, you're in this room, so I probably don't need to convince you on the power and impact we have when we work together. You know that cooperation among United Churches has done and keeps doing some amazing things. But does everyone in your congregation know this? Do they know that through mission and service, the United Church is helping to provide essentials for vulnerable people, like the Recovery Mission in Calgary or the Community Kitchen in Lethbridge? Do folks know that people who feel called to ministry or other leadership in our church can pursue education because of mission and service funding? Do they know the thousands of young people across the country build resilience, independence, and connection to creation by attending United Church camps like Bar Harbor, Kasota East and West, and hopefully someday not too far off, Canyon Church Camp? If people in your congregation do not know these things, inspire them. Use your Generosity Matters, the mission and service materials and stories that are still being created. I heard in the breakout room I was in that folks think that those are gone now, but they're not. They're still being created and they're being distributed every month through email. So there's also videos on the United Church YouTube channel if that's a medium you use during worship. So there are things, if you can't find them, please reach out to me and I will get you connected. And if you considered the questions I asked on the previous slide about what your mission is, what inspires you in your community of faith, I want you to take those ideas and maybe consider creating a case for support. In a paragraph or two, answer the question, why should someone donate to my community of faith? Why should someone join us? And once you have that down, share it, get feedback from other leaders, and then start communicating that to your members, to your neighborhood, and beyond. So again, I want to invite you to just join me in a reflective moment here. So when you ask members of your community of faith to give, when do you ask them to give? When was the last time generosity was spoken about as a spiritual practice? How are folks who are curious about your community of faith invited in, welcomed, and engaged? So another tip is that make it easy for folks to give to your community of faith. Have multiple ways to accept donations, whether that's online, through PAR, e-transfers, etc. Make it easy. Giving and sharing resources is as much a part of discipleship as prayer, Bible study, or worship are. Jesus talked about money a lot. And in fact, he talked about money more than he talked about prayer. And much of the time, Jesus used stories of money to help reveal our true priorities. We know how we spend our time, our talents, and our treasure speaks volumes about what we value. So invite people in your community to deepen the practice of generosity by prayerfully considering their giving to both your congregation, to mission and service, and beyond. And don't be shy about asking. People need reminders, and they want to help you make the world a better place. And finally, invite others in your community to create a learning team and to dig in more into this more by participating in Called to Be the Church, the Journey. Again, contact me for more details. And finally, thank. So how do you practice gratitude in your own life? How is generosity within your community of faith lifted up and celebrated? How do you feel when you are appropriately seen and acknowledged and thanked? In what ways do you pay that forward? So whether you write down 3 things a day that you're grateful for, or you share a moment of thanks before supper, or you send a thank you text to someone in your life, living a life full of gratitude is a practice, and it takes daily work. And if you don't have a gratitude practice, it can be life-changing. And I would encourage you to try to pick one up today. And you don't need to wait until tax receipts get mailed out to thank people who support the mission and ministry of your church. Developing a thanking plan is ideal. You can participate in Called to Be the Church, the Journey to learn more. But if you don't have a plan or strategy today, just start. Make a couple of quick phone calls, craft an email to everyone that's on par, send a card to that new member who's been helping with tech issues during worship. Thank yous do not have to be perfect, but they do need to happen and happen frequently. And finally, give yourself a high five. You all have been wildly creative, patient, compassionate, and driven over the last 14 months and counting. And I'm so thankful for you, your work in Chinook Winds. And I encourage you to just take a minute and express gratitude to others in this meeting, whether it's just giving a thumbs up to folks on the screen or whether it's writing something in the chat. And so here's my information. This screen won't be up here for long, but I will throw my email address into the chat as well. And do reach out. Let's work on these things together. And finally, before I go, I want to share a video about the Mission and Service Fund. So.
Friends, in a year unlike any other, your generosity through mission and service has been extraordinary. We will share financial results with you shortly. But first, we want to share our impact because we give to make a difference. Here are some of the lives you touch through mission and service.
2004 is when I joined this project. I was given the first loan. I had saved and I was given a loan of 2,000 shillings. I benefited a lot from that 2,000 shillings. I started a small business of selling vegetables. I built these 2 houses for renting out.
I came here in summer 2017 to Canada. It wasn't easy for me. The whole family got involved to Montreal City Mission with all activities and the project they provided.
And beautiful, and I'm so thankful that the person of Jesus reached into my life and invited me on this journey with him.
Mission and service changes lives. It's the work we do best together as a denomination, in our communities of faith, and through the passion and commitment of members of all ages. En ce temps où nombre d'œuvres caritatives ont vu le revenu chuter de 40%, la générosité des membres de l'Église unie est extraordinaire. Ce n'est assurément pas facile. As you might expect, congregational giving to mission and service decreased by about 12.5% in 2020. En tout, les dons à mission et service, y compris les dons des paroisses, les dons testamentaires, les dons d'assurance vie, les dons spéciaux et le soutien du regroupement de femmes de l'Église unie, totalisant plus de 26 millions de dollars. Communities of faith, many of which we know were struggling themselves, contributed over 17 of that $26 million. Our collective heart has never been stronger. One steady overall factor here was the special support of the United Church of Canada's Foundation's grant of $3 million, half of which was granted in 2020 as a one-time emergency fund for congregations in need. Nous avons également constaté un soutien important à la suite de nos appels d'urgence pour aider nos partenaires internationaux aux prises avec la COVID-19, ainsi que nos appels réguliers pour soutenir missions et services. And we are always deeply touched by the number of people who remember mission and service in their estates, giving the church a lasting legacy. Everyone and every gift made a difference. You made a difference. Merci. Thank you.
Jesus said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart is." It is clear from looking at our mission and service giving this year that we treasure our mission. Our heart is in justice. It is in discipleship. It is in compassion. Thank you for your ministry.
There are many women who want to join the group because they see that I have progressed a lot. I am no longer the way I was before.
I would like to thank Mission and Service of United Church of Canada. 3 years ago, I was just a refugee woman who was in need, and now I am a coordinator of so many activities at Montreal City Mission.
What I would say to the donors of the Mission and Service Fund is that it's worth it. The church is alive and beautiful and vibrant, and it's worth investing in.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Vicki. People are asking for the slides, so I'll let you read through the comments and see how you can respond to those. So at this time, we're going to show 2 videos before we're going to hear from Trina just before lunch. The first video will go from one video into the other. The first video is from St. Andrew's College. It's an update, and then into a video from the Right Relations group.
Friends, as you gather for your regional council meeting, we bring greetings to you from St. Andrew's College. In this time of Easter promise, in the midst of the challenges of living in a pandemic exile, know that we send our very best to you as you gather, discern, and make decisions to share the gospel. I also want to share that the college is on the cusp of sharing some exciting news, which hopefully will come out throughout the spring and into the summer. As many of you know, we've had to make some very difficult choices, and that has not been an easy time for the college. And I am grateful for the challenge and the support that we have received both from our traditional prairie context and across the country. I invite you to pay attention as these announcements come out and point to a commitment to lifelong learning in a way that is new for the college, and also to ensure that we continue with our commitment to academic programming in partnership with our Saskatoon Theological Union friends. So stay tuned. One of the decisions that came out of the discernment of our strategic plan last year was the establishment of a new role, that of a recruitment officer. And so with that new news, which some of you already know about, I introduce you to the college's first recruitment officer, Sean Sanford-Beck.
Thank you, Richard. And good to see all of you virtually. I'm very glad to have heard from many of you over the past few months that I've been here at the college. I've had the opportunity to meet some of you online and over the phone. And it's been a real pleasure to get to know the work of the regional councils a little bit in this part of our good land. I want to extend my thanks to you for all the work that you do as regional councils to keep the message of Christ spreading and the power of the Spirit at work in our midst. I also want to say thanks in advance for all of you who will be contacting me over the next season of our life together, as you send me names of people who you have identified from in your midst who are being called into ministry or who would like to study theology in one way or another. Really, you are all the eyes and the ears and the hearts on the ground watching for people who are being called into ministry. And so I would just really encourage you to be in touch with me and with the college as you feel it appropriate to do so, and let me know who are those people in your midst being called to God's work. Because here at St. Andrews, we would really like to have a part in training those folks and equipping them for the ministry of God in the world. So blessings on your work. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time. We commend our written report to you. Have a look at that. And please do keep us in your prayers, the college and all of its students and faculty and staff. Keep us in your prayers, and our blessings go with you. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Stoney Nakoda, I'm here with Glenda Crawler and with Trudy Wesley, and I'm Gloria Snow. And we want to show our appreciation and gratitude for the Stoney Christmas gift card. And because of COVID, we weren't able to go out and make a dinner for people. So the collection of donations were to provide gift cards for the elders in Morley, Eat Valley, and Bighorn, as well as the urban Indigenous and elders in different regions in Alberta.
God came to give us hope, and we celebrate that. We are so thankful, and our people are in need. We live in a third world on the reserve, and when the church helping us, I think it was all because of God's will. Because they were really thankful. They didn't have nothing but Some homes didn't have nothing.
Yeah.
I was able to go out and go to the elders' homes on the reserve, and they were very thankful because it was close to Christmas and they really needed extra help, so they were really thankful for it.
Ne oda wa tabi kencho amen tam tastabi do yohebia omen jachi shunya wa tabi chagya ko yohebia bidok niye shencho ha on chagya bihuna da anwa tabi hancha wa kantu me amba jencho da anwa tabi tash kamen ko ishnies to humpina ya bich de wa kanne hechen pinchecha echecha then ie bari yami huna hechen ingo gabi ne huya geng gabuan wakande uchi gabi ta unda kochi mustami sinje ye ke wunda ka hunt is yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you to the Right Relations people for that video and to the folks from St. Andrews. There is just so much amazing work happening in this region, and it's just such a blessing to be part of it. 83 pages of things in the reports and agenda book. We're just so active in doing such amazing work, and I hope you all feel proud of everything that we're doing together. As we move into our lunch break, I just wanted to let you know that when we come back, which is now at 1:30, we're going to come back and hear a little bit about the new youth and young adult ministry, what we're calling the children, youth, families, young adults. The first third ministry for first third of life is going to be giving a bit of a presentation. And we're going to talk about how we're going to animate that ministry in the life of Chinook Winds region. If you've got some questions or want to be in conversation with the first third team, Pamela Evans, who's the team lead for Pacific Mountain region and the newly expanded first third ministry, and Chris Mapoy and Mary Nickel, who is also part of the first third team from Pacific Mountain region, will be hosting a chat in the Zoom gathering room at 1 o'clock when we do the Zoom rooms. And if you want to get to know them a little bit and get a little preview of what we're going to be talking about when we come back, I'd really invite you to take that opportunity. There'll also be some other conversations, informal conversations in the Zoom rooms. Vicki is hosting a conversation for diaconal ministry. Brenda offered to answer questions around Office of Vocation and candidacy processes. I'll have a room going, and I don't know, Vicki Nelson, do you want to be available?
I could be, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
I'll figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah, just hang on when we break for lunch and we'll give you instructions. So that will be from 1 to 1:30, and then of course there can be other informal little chat rooms for coffee as well if you'd like to do that. But we will be starting promptly at 1:30 for our presentations again, as we agreed to early this morning. So thanks and enjoy your lunch. Talk to you soon.